Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is President and CEO of Oxfam America, Abby Maxman. Abby, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really grateful you're here for this really important conversation today because there has been a lot of confusion over the status of the United States Agency for International Development. And this comes after the Trump administration announced it set its sights on potentially reorganizing it or getting rid of it completely. You have spoken out against the move, but to start off the conversation, can you explain what USAID does?
USAID is an organization established in 1961, designed to support overseas development assistance. It helps people respond to emergencies. It helps people and farmers and families and communities in their development needs. It's really an agency that has supported U.S. interests globally to support a more prosperous and peaceful world.
You raised the alarm bell once this was potentially getting dismantled, and you said that dismantling it could have, quote, deadly consequences for millions. What are those consequences? Can you talk about us or what this future would look like without USAID or a different USAID?
Well, USAID has brought life-saving medicines, food, clean water, support, assistance for farmers. It's kept women and girls safe. It's promoted peace and security and so much more over decades. It works with so many partners around the world. And this is all for less than 1% of the federal budget. So this hasty, thoughtless approach to tearing it down without warning, without thought and care, harms people not just down the road, but today. There are children not getting access to clean water in the Democratic Republic of Congo today because of these actions that have really taken a wrecking ball to a set of programs and intentional supportive projects that have supported people's lives around the world for decades.
I want to read you a quote from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He said this to reporters about the organization. Every dollar we spend and every program we fund will be aligned with the national interests of the United States, and USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity. What do you make of that quote?
I find that there is misleading information being said about the agency and the partners with whom it has worked for decades, even though Oxfam does not rely on U.S. government funding directly. The U.S. government has supported global humanitarian and development assistance around the world for decades. And it's such an important partner in looking at evidence-based approaches that work, supports people to save lives at times of disaster. I have worked and led disaster response in places like Haiti and Ethiopia over the decades. And I have worked with incredible people with experience and expertise who bring a great deal of thought and care to the actions and activities and partnerships and programs. So I'm very troubled by these, I'd say, thoughtless and intentionally misleading remarks about an agency that has provided incredible support to the humanitarian and development system since its founding.
Critics of this move from the Trump administration are echoing a lot of what you're saying this could be dangerous, this is harmful to the rest of the world and American interests. People who are for it, including Elon Musk, have said things like USAID was a radical left political psyop. Talk to us a little bit about that misleading information you were talking about. What do you think is out there about USAID that you've been seeing in this conversation that just isn't true?
Oh, well, it's hard to know where to begin because there is so much swirling around there that does seem like it is taking attention off of real, thoughtful policies, reviews for any programs, any government programs around the world. What's happening, it's an illegal assault on an independent agency, and it really must swiftly be challenged in the court. We need Congress to take a stand immediately, and we really don't have the luxury of time while President Trump and Elon Musk tear down a system that has been working to support programs and people around the world for a long time. What these actions are turning off a spigot of aid. Literally. That includes clean water. It includes food. There is food support around the world that is helping people, supporting chronically food insecure people, preventing them from falling into disaster and crisis, and responding to people who have food needs, farmers, women, children, girls everywhere that really need and have come to rely on the global aid system. And so it is such a thoughtless approach that's really quite stunning to all of us. It's shocking the fact that it seems that the world's richest man is launching an assault on an independent agency and taking life-saving support from millions, including women and children.
What do you think? I know that the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself for the past almost decade has run on putting America first. And what do you make of the argument of why are we putting tax dollars and government money elsewhere when that could be used at home?
Well, I think that, first of all, I want to clarify what is often misunderstood, that U.S. foreign assistance represents less than 1% of the U.S. budget. So it's a very small thing. And I would say that, and what I've seen in my career, is that actually when the U.S. supports policies and programs that support the well-being of people around the world, it is in America's interests. It supports prosperity and peace and people living in dignity and helping people whose lives have been upended, be it by conflict or disaster. Lending a helping hand at people's time of need is a very important part of how the United States shows up in the world. And I've also seen that the way other donors and other governments respond, they often follow the United States lead. And so this pulling out the rug with no thought, with no time, with no care, has created an incredible amount of churn, chaos, and confusion that is harming people. It's harming people right now. It's harming people's lives. It's losing an incredible amount of expertise and experience that is longstanding, that there are hardworking people who have dedicated their life to service, serving the United States around the world and bringing dignity and peace and humanity to people who deserve better.
I totally hear what you're saying right now. And you're essentially saying, hey, if the USAID gets dismantled, the impact is immediate and it's swift and it's around the world. But let's say it's moved underneath the Department of State. What do you think about that move? And if Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is temporarily leading that, what do you make of that reorganization?
Well, I mean, there's a few statements out there, but any thoughtful reorganization needs to be done with thought and care. I have not seen why wrecking and pulling down a system without clear goals and processes and approaches with the State Department has a different set of goals and values, and the symbols of progress and so much expertise are seemingly wiped out at the moment. And it's a really deeply worrying signal for those who need this work to survive and those who have devoted their careers and lives to service in this way. It's very confusing. There is no plan that we can see. Treating people with such carelessness is all we can see is a level of cruelty and chaos and confusion that is actually hurting those who can least afford it, those who are least responsible. I think this is undermining U.S. interests, and we know that there's been so much good work that has happened over the years, and these kind of moves makes everybody less safe.
I think two of the biggest takeaways from my conversation with you right now are that one, the devastating and immediate impacts that this has for shutting this off, and two, you're saying this only is less than 1% of the budget. So why, if this is such a small sliver of the budget, do you think that this is being targeted?
Oh, I wish I knew, other than it is a distraction and it's intentionally misleading from real issues that need to be addressed. This move comes at a time when inequality, instability, hunger, and humanitarian needs are growing, and the global system to address this had already been overstretched. So it really feels like it's intentionally cruel, like it's a distraction, that it is seeing how it can push boundaries, and we really need action. As Oxfam, we will continue to push for the U.S. government to lead the fight against poverty and inequality around the world. We must uphold U.S. aid, a U.S. agency for international development that values the lives and dignity of communities over political interests. This feels like it's been a political power play that is really harming the poorest people in the world.
You've mentioned the short-term impacts here. What do you think the long-term impacts are going to be for USAID getting either completely dismantled, completely gutted, or moving under the State Department?
Well, the Trump administration has, in just a few short days, early days in its first 100 days, taken a wrecking ball to the global aid system. If this is a signal of what's to come, it is deeply, deeply troubling. There doesn't seem to be a clear plan or approach to do things responsibly, thoughtfully. It's upending work that has been, and commitments. I think it will undermine how people and communities around the world even trust the United States or U.S. citizens to fulfill our promises and our commitments. We're seeing places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is already dealing with an ongoing urgent crisis. There's fighting and displacement escalating as we speak. And people there and everywhere really have the right to be safe, have something to eat, have medical care and other basics. And it really feels to me, I believe, the American people that I've gotten the privilege to connect with and work with over the decades and over the years really care about humans around humanity and our common humanity. Cutting off aid to people in such circumstances really is unforgivable. It feels callous, mean-spirited, and intentionally harmful.
And aside from what you're saying of this seems purposefully mean, cruelty is the point here. You also said early in the conversation that this is illegal. So what type of legal or congressional action do you think we're going to see anytime soon, if you know of any?
Well, we certainly hope Congress will take action. USAID is under the remit of Congress. There's no right for a billionaire and the Trump administration to dismantle it without due process. There are legal channels that need to be explored, and we really need to see this suspension lifted for all foreign assistance immediately so that what life-saving work can continue. This processes and the chaos and the confusion that has been sowed has been unprecedented, and no number of ad hoc waivers or exemptions that are being talked about in a very confusing environment can undo the immeasurable harm that all of this is already causing to communities who need assistance. So even with waivers, we know that suspending foreign aid could have life or death consequences for people everywhere. So we need the legal action to happen. We as Oxfam stand ready to fight for a global system that is fighting for the rights and dignity of people everywhere. And we count on and call on Congress to take a stand immediately and this to be swiftly challenged in court.
Before I let you go, you mentioned him a few times, so I would love to ask about what you think about Elon Musk's involvement in all of this. Forbes tracks the richest billionaires in the world. He always is up in the top 5, at least, usually between 1 and 3. He's the one who he announced that President Trump approved of shuttering USAID. What do you make of his involvement?
It is deeply troubling that the world's richest man is launching an illegal assault on an independent agency in consultation with the president. This is a really shocking turn of events. We have a global oligarchy who seems to be engaging in political activity in unprecedented ways. It's very worrying about how we are operating in I would say, democracy, good governance, and the rule of law are all being upended by these actions and moves.
Did you have any idea in your position with Oxfam? Did you have any idea that this was coming down the pike, or were you just surprised as the rest of us when you saw that USAID and its funding was potentially in danger?
Well, we were concerned about what was coming. Certainly, there was a lot of signals from previous Trump administration, from Project 2025, about concerns about their plans and a playbook. As Oxfam and all organizations that I'm aware of in the global aid system, we care about efficiency and impact and accountability. Those are all principles we abide by. But the way that this has happened from week one, a rash of confusing executive orders, then stop work orders, and then this assault on USAID has been so upending, surprising, and the speed and ferocity and cruelty has been unexpected. It's hard for me when I think about families and women and children with whom I've had the privilege of working and knowing in Ethiopia, in Syria, around the world, who deserve and are looking to the U.S. for thoughtful, kind leadership and support, and for us to be a beacon of hope and a beacon of light of light. And to see these egregious actions happening so fast and in such a harmful way, it's devastating. I am sad and I am worried. And as Oxfam, we are deeply, deeply committed to continuing our work to fight for the rights and dignity of people around the world. And of course, people in the United States. Those who are most marginalized deserve to have their voices heard and their rights respected.
Well, Abby, I really appreciate your insight today. It's a really important conversation. And as this situation develops, because as you and I have been saying, we are in a time of uncertainty, I hope you come back on and join me and talk to us about updates. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. It would be my great pleasure. Thank you so much.